The year is 2026, and it's been nearly 5 years since the release of Halo Infinite, and we've finally been graced with a new Halo release. Well, I mean, kinda. It's Halo CE for the third time. My name's Love, and today I'll be taking on Campaign Evolved's hardest challenge, LASO. I've been obtaining all of the LASO achievements within the Bungie Classics, but with a brand new release, those games will just have to be put on hold. For those of you who don't know, LASO stands for Legendary All Skulls On. This turns the already overwhelming Legendary difficulty into a masochist's wet dream. Campaign Evolved has 17 skulls in its LASO playlist, which is the most out of any Halo game, even Halo 2, which only has 14 skulls. Throughout my playthrough, I'll bring up some of the more important modifiers, including a couple of new ones as they come up in game. I'm not entirely sure what I'm in for, but let's just go ahead and get this started. I start off strong with the Pillar of Honor while watching Sam blow up in 4K and then failing the pipe jump. Right away, I get to introduce a few skulls, with our first one being Speed Limit. If you're one of those people that just can't stand sprint inside of Halo, then this skull is for you. It simply just takes away my ability to sprint. Next up is the Fog Skull, which disables my radar entirely, and then the Malfunction Skull, which will hide a random HUD element anytime that I die. This could be my grenades, my health, my weapons and ammo, or even my reticle. After a bit of running through the ship, I make it to the bridge, and then Captain Keyes hands me his magnum, and in return, I awkwardly stare at him. I go ahead and put Jerma inside of my head, and I am off to go kill some split lips. Immediately upon exiting the bridge, I am met by a few grunts which will help display our next skulls. First off, we have Grunt Funeral, which will cause a grunt to explode upon death, and then we have Boom, which doubles the blast radius of all explosions. This combination will end up being the cause of a lot of my deaths in this LASO run. Inside the mess hall, there are a couple of elites which I tried to sneak up on, but was unpleasantly surprised to get one frame meleeed by the Reach AI. I don't have many negatives to say about this game, but the Reach elites drive me nuts. Although he does give me the opportunity to present the next skull, Iron. This skull can disrespectfully go fuck itself alongside anybody who has a problem with me working around it. When solo, the Iron Skull resets the mission upon death, but if you're in co-op, it reverts to your previous checkpoint. As you can see, I'm able to save scum just like an MCC, which will load me to my previous checkpoint. This skull is a load of bullshit, and I won't be penalized for not having friends. Believe it or not, this first encounter really started to cause me issues. It took me about 30 minutes before I eventually found a way to get by. I decided to go up to the split lips from earlier so I can beat them down and safely grab a plasma pistol, which will allow me to use the noob combo. You couldn't do this in the original CE thanks to the foreign skull, but that is no longer a thing in this game, thank God. Once the mess hall is cleared, I head farther into the ship until I reach a group of Covenant inviting themselves in. I threw a grenade to try and take out the Covenant, but it accidentally killed a Marine and in turn caused the squad next to me to start shooting me. This is thanks to the Temperamental Skull. This new skull makes Marines turn on you the second you kill any friendly, so be careful when you're throwing your grenades. The game didn't seem to like that I was shooting the Marines and decided to crash itself. Fortunately, even though my game crashed, my checkpoint was still there. I somehow killed another Marine and pissed everybody off, so I just went ahead and grabbed an overshield and then put it in my pocket for later. Unlike the original game, I'm allowed to use them the same way I would in Halo 3, and I am personally a big fan of this change. Continuing farther into the level, I realized the Marines were still unhappy with me, and because they're hostiles at this point, I can use the Black Eye Skull and melee them for shields. In LASO, the only way to regen your shield is to land a melee on any hostile, and this skull becomes very handy later in the game. Things were going well until I turned around and realized there are in fact downsides to the Temperamental Skull. I'll be honest, there isn't too much to show for the Pillar of Autumn. This mission is way easier on LASO compared to the OG, purely due to the fact that I can just noob combo all of the elites. I make it to the stair room and then take everybody out with the noob combo, and then head upstairs and create a chain reaction of exploding grunts that clears most of this hallway for me. The elites don't always die to the grunt explosions due to the Mythic Skull. The Mythic Skull increases the health of enemies, making elites extra tanky. At this point, I head through the vent and I am nearing the end of the mission. It sure would be a shame if my game crashed. Well, fortunately, it didn't crash. Unfortunately, while I was in a very intense firefight with some elites, my power went out. Gotta love those Florida thunderstorms. Tragically, with my power going out, the game got confused and my closest checkpoint was all the way at the beginning of the mission, meaning I have to redo everything, but fortunately, it's only the Pillar of Autumn and it's not that big of a deal. I make it back through the vent and then take out the elites so that I can make my way to the final encounter of the mission. I just chuck a couple of grenades and then finish off the remaining elites, allowing me to enter the escape pod and head my way to the next mission, Halo. With the new game comes new cutscenes, which means we get to see the life pod crash in more detail. I've seen a lot of discourse online about the new cutscenes, and apart from a few of them that have some odd pacing, I am personally a big fan of these. Halo starts off just like it does in the OG, except instead of doing a nade jump to skip the Banshee spawn, I can simply jump on some rocks and make my way up. There's a squad of Covenant up here that I blow up with a grunt, and then a single elite. This guy would normally be an elite major, but the Thunderstorm Skull increases the rank of all enemies, making him an elite ultra instead. Making it to the first beam emitter, I take out a group of grunts, clearing a majority of the battlefield before learning that the spirits in this game do not fuck around. Believe it or not, I do die to the spirit a good amount in this LASO playthrough. Its shots count as explosions, so the boom skull does impact its radius, making it extremely deadly. Once the coast is clear, I take out the remaining elites and then group up with Steve Harvey and his squad. This area is the same as the original, just kill grunts as they pop out of the dropship, let them explode, kill most of the enemies, and then wait for the next dropship to come in. Once the elites start dropping out of the ships, I get closer just so I can use my plasma pistol and take them out before I lose the advantage of cover, making it harder for me to survive. One thing about the new AR is that it's very accurate and it really doesn't have too much spread, making it a viable option to take out shields from afar if you don't have a plasma pistol available. The plasma pistol also has a very sticky aim, so it will lock onto a target and almost always hit, making it arguably one of the best plasma pistols I have ever used. Except for the OG plasma pistol, because that will always be my favorite gun from any Halo game. Once all the waves of enemies are cleared, Foehammer comes and drops off a Warthog, sending me on my way to the other 3 lifeboats. On the way there, Cortana says the thing,
"This cave is not a natural formation.
No fucking way. And then I forget my keybinds while activating the bridge and blow myself up. This time I activate the bridge and then attempt to make a speedy exit, but the plasma pistol now stuns vehicles in this game. I got stunned not once, not twice, but 3 times on my way out. I did survive, but good lord, I already have a feeling this is gonna get really annoying. Upon making it to the first group of Marines, I got stunned 2 more times and decided to leave my Marines to fend for themselves. Inside the structure, I have used the Black Eye Skull to kill all the Jackals and then let the Grunt blow himself up. With the Marines safe, all they have to do is kill the remaining enemies. You can no longer kill the Marines to skip this encounter, so be prepared to fight everybody up top. I wouldn't really say this area is hard, it's just very time consuming because I had to be extra careful. The last thing I'd want to happen is to die after killing most of the enemies and having to do it all over again. Once all the enemies are dead, Foehammer will come and drop off a Warthog so I can go head to the next group of Marines. After one of the encounters gets completed, a couple of Banshees will spawn into the connecting area and they are very aggressive. I tried to take one down with a plasma pistol so I could hijack it, but that didn't work out too well. I decided to just let the Marines take them out because as fun as it would be to fly a Banshee around this level, I really didn't want to be here forever. With the Banshees out of the equation, I head to the next group of Marines and immediately get my vehicle stunned. That shit had to have been pre-fired. At the top of the hill is the next group of Marines, and just like the last encounter, I have to kill every single enemy. This area was by far the worst part of the mission. I died here the most out of anywhere else in this mission, and the constant flow of enemies did not help me at all. It took me a good hour, but I eventually made it to the final wave of enemies and only had a few elites to deal with. That being said, they are still elites and I have no cover to hide behind. I finally realized that I could run down the hill so that I could at least manage having 3 elites trying to touch me unconsensually. However, this did not stop me from finding ways to die. Well, grenades. Grenades were the reason I was dying. After numerous attempts, I finally took out the elites and the grunt stragglers, allowing me to head to the final area of the mission. The final encounter really isn't all that bad. I'm able to hold a high ground and play as safe as I need to for as long as I need to. This area also introduces the new addition of Jackal snipers, so I made sure to take them out as soon as possible. The Marines honestly did most of the work for me as well. I just had to drive around and keep them alive while they did all of my dirty work for me. After suffering a few deaths and facing multiple waves of the Covenant, I finally killed the remaining enemies of the mission and boarded the Pelican, making my way to none other than Truth and Reconciliation. If you had seen my original Halo CE LASO video, you might know how I feel about this mission, and let's just say, those feelings, they haven't changed. In my opinion, it's one of the greatest missions in the entire Halo franchise, but when it comes to difficulty, it will definitely put you in your place. The beginning before you reach the grav lift is pretty simple. Take everyone out with your sniper and move forward. This part of the mission is the exact same as the OG and really just tests your patience. As long as you take your time and you don't rush anything, you'll be fine. After clearing the big 3 areas before the grav lift, I grabbed the active camo thinking it'll make my life easier, but that was in fact not the case. I don't know what Halo Studios was doing, but they sure as hell did not test the active camo. This is another one of the few issues that I have with this game. No matter what I tried, the enemies were just too aware of where I was, and the camo didn't work. I'm putting that to the side for now. I finally made it to the grav lift, and it is time for the hard part. Once you clear the enemies around the area, multiple waves will begin to descend from the grav lift, and I need to take them out as soon as possible. I was here for literal hours, and I was not ready for what was yet to come. Wave after wave and death after death, I eventually cleared all of the elites and their cannon fodder, but now it was time for the main event, the hunters. These hunters are not your traditional CE hunter. They have the biggest melee radius that I have ever seen in any video game. Not to mention, they're built so differently that I die purely from them just landing. These hunters were by far the hardest part of this LASO run. There are plenty of other hunters throughout the campaign, even in this mission, but these 2 specific hunters gave me a run for my money. I was at this for a very long time before I ended up asking if anyone had managed to get past the hunters, and someone suggested that I use plasma nades and active camo. So after looking at my options, I decided I need to reset the mission so that I can save some plasma nades and use the active camo when the hunters drop. So back at square one, I get by all the main areas while collecting plasma nades and then grabbing the active camo and making sure to save it for the hunters. Fortunately, there was also a skip that was found while I was still on Truth and Reconciliation, so I decided to give it a shot. I do a little bit of oobing and climb to the top of the rocks, which for some reason causes the grav lift to go through all of its waves without spawning any enemies. Besides the hunters, of course. They spawn in no matter what, and they are required to progress through the mission. Once all the enemies that were initially here are dead, the grav lift will activate one last time and bring down the hunters. With my active camo ready in full plasma grenades, it's time to finally end this torment. I tried the whole plasma grenade thing for a while, but I just couldn't manage to kill even one of them. Despite that, I kept trying, but after a while I realized this really wasn't working and decided to get physical. I still used the plasma nades to help weaken them, but once I had them in a good position, I just started to beat the shit out of them while dodging their melees to finally clear this encounter. I was at this for 2 days and I haven't even made it inside of the ship yet. Up next is what I would say is the hardest part of this mission in the original game. The belly was so rough due to RNG and not having Covenant weapons to help take out the very large amount of sword elites. However, in this game you can use energy swords and sword elites aren't really too big of an issue. Until they are. I did die here a few times and got curious. The way you'd get out of this room in CE is by sneaking into one of the hallways and letting all the enemies spawn. After some time, you'd open the door and take out a grunt to create a chain reaction of exploding grunts, taking out most of the enemies and leaving you with just a few sword elites. And to my surprise, it actually works. I cleared this room very easily and then was presented with 2 more hunters, which aren't an issue at all thanks to the energy sword. Heading farther into the ship, I figured I'd try to use active camo to slip past these enemies like you would in the OG, but this obviously didn't work and I don't know why I thought it would. So rather than sneaking by, I brute forced my way through, killing everything in my way. This next room wasn't too bad, just a few elites and then a bunch of grunts that can somehow shoot me through the floor. What the fuck? Once everyone is dead, I activate the switch, which will open up these doors, allowing me to head to the infamous hangar. The hangar wasn't terrible, but it was definitely a lot of work. In my CE LASO, I was able to do a grenade jump that would skip a lot of the enemy spawns, but I didn't even bother trying here because I didn't think it would be that hard. It was by no means easy, but after a few attempts, I managed to clear the bottom floor and made my way up to Keys. There's one last encounter before you make it to Keys, and it would normally be a bit tricky, but again, in this game I have a plasma pistol, so I can take out the grunts and then overcharge the elites, making quick work of them. Fun fact, I lied. Halo Studios reworked the inside of the ship a bit, so there are 2 more rooms before you make it to Keys. They're really nothing crazy, and after I clear them, I go release my friend, Todd. Todd is a grunt that's inside of a cell, and when you open the cell up, he's a friendly little dude. With Todd by my side, I'm ready to free Keys, but I need to be careful because there are invisible elites and they could be anywhere. Wait, are we fucking serious? After I kill the very stealthy elites one at a time, I activate a button freeing Keys and his marines, allowing me to finally head to the end of the mission. After I free Keys, a squad of elites rush their way into the brig and I take care of them from a safe distance while the marines help take down their shields. The connecting room is once again full of enemies and I take them out before a couple of hunters come through, but I simply just run past them. I make it to the bridge that has some more stealth leads, which once again, they are very conveniently marked for me. This guy seemed to know he was fucked either way and just gave up. Once the elites are dealt with, a bunch of grunts come barging in and I was not ready for that. Take my time on my second go-round and take them out, leading me to my final squad of enemies, which I take care of, and then press the button to end the mission. With Truth and Reconciliation out of the way, it's time for a nice stroll on the beach with the silent Cartographer. I walk along the beach until I make it to a group of Covenant. I take them out and then head my way up the hill so that I can deal with my next pair of hunters. Like I said earlier, there are plenty of hunters throughout the campaign, but those hunters on the lift are the toughest ones to kill. The guys here were extremely easy, and the other hunter just sat and watched as I beat up his buddy. With both hunters down, I head down the hill taking care of some of the little guys and then down into the building to unlock the door to the main structure. I activate the switch which reveals the big scary gold elite, and then I run past all the enemies that have followed me into the building, and then I snag a warthog on the beach. I drive the warthog into the structure and park it so that I can make a speedy exit after I make my way back up. Using an overshield that I grabbed earlier, I fall to the bottom floor and activate it right before I land to negate all the fall damage I would have otherwise taken. I activate the Cartographer and then begin heading my way back up to the surface. I do a grenade jump to grab this active camo so that I have a somewhat easier time heading my way back up. The active camo sucks, but it kinda works sometimes, so I'll take some over none. I run past a couple more hunters and then run into the gold elite from earlier. I take care of him and then hop into my warthog to quickly drive up to the Pelican and finish the level. Up next is Assault on the Control Room. In the OG CE, this is the easiest mission to complete on LASO thanks to the Banshee grab. You can't do the same trick in this game, but I get pretty close. After clearing this room and making it to the bridge, I shoot down a Banshee with my plasma pistol and steal it. This did take me quite a few attempts, but I got it done. Now, unlike the trick in CE, this doesn't despawn all the enemies. They're still there, but it is very easy to take care of them from range with the Banshee. It honestly took about 10 minutes to clear everyone out of this room, but I am more than willing to do this than die in this room over 50 times if I did it normally. Once the room is clear, I open the door and then continue to fly through the level until I reach a bridge. Up here is a room full of enemies along with another pair of hunters that I run past. At the end of the room, there are 3 stealth elites that I bait out of the hallway, which allows me to quickly get away from them and outside onto the bridge. There are a few guys right up front and then some elites farther up the bridge. I get rid of them and then snag a Banshee, which I fly through the tunnels past the horde of enemies and then end the easiest mission of the LASO campaign yet. Up next is the level I was most excited for in this remake, 343 Guilty Spark. This level has always been a favorite of mine, and I think they absolutely cooked with the visuals here. In the beginning of the mission, I take a quick detour to skip some enemy spawns, so my apologies, you don't get to see all the cool stuff. After the detour, I run straight into the containment facility and head down the elevator. At the bottom of the elevator, there's a doorway full of grunts and jackals, and I tried to take out with a grenade, but a grunt went flying outside the doorway and blew me up. On my second attempt, I just headshot a grunt to remove some of the ragdolling going on, and then walked back just a bit further to make sure I could survive. I continue forward through the mission, taking out some more grunts and jackals until I make it to the flood reveal. This cutscene is definitely one of the better ones within the game, and I think they did very well recreating it, but too bad I don't get to watch it because my game crashed. And somehow, my checkpoint is after the flood reveal, so I couldn't even watch it if I wanted to. And now it's time for my least favorite thing in this game, infection forms. They are extremely annoying, they do too much damage, there's way too many of them, and for whatever reason, meleeing them does not recharge my shield with the Black Ice Skull. I suppose my distaste for them is specific to LASO, but either way, they're just a bunch of little fuckers. This room really wasn't all that bad, and neither is the rest of the facility. I trained the flood like I was in town on BO2 and then walked past everybody else. That's pretty much how I got through a majority of this level. Everything was pretty simple up until I got to the final section, but we'll get to that in a minute. Once you make it out of the first encounter, the game tries to trick you into going to a broken elevator, but you can just go the correct way on your way out rather than wasting time. I go down another elevator while being chased by the flood and then come across the infected section of the facility. I really appreciate what they have done to all the levels that involve the flood. It really sets the tone and fits very well within the campaign. After running past even more flood, I finally make it to the elevator that will bring me to the surface, and when I tell you this was probably one of the most annoying parts of this campaign, I mean it. Upon making it to the surface, I was feeling pretty good. This level was almost over, and I was ready for the library. Little did I know that you can no longer destroy the Sentinels to end the mission. This game actually makes you survive every single wave of the flood, requiring you to kill everything with little to no cover. There isn't much to show, well, because it's just me dying for 2 hours straight, but this is definitely a close runner-up for worst mission in LASO. After way too many checkpoint resets, I finally managed to make it to the final wave of the flood. I played this extra careful because there was no way in hell I was going to keep my sanity if I had to go back to the beginning. And just like that, all the flood is gone and taken care of, and I can finally head to the library. The library has been reworked in this remake and for the better. I've seen people saying online that they aren't a fan, but I personally really love this rework. It still has 4 floors, but it is much less repetitive. There are still doors that the Oracle has to open, but the holdout sections aren't quite as long. There's one skull that I forgot to mention in the last mission, but now's a perfect time to do so. Pop is a new skull introduced in this game that causes combat forms to explode when you shoot their weak points. This comes in handy, making it easier to kill the Flood and also helps clear out large groups. But it's also a new way to blow myself up. Overall, the first floor of the library is pretty simple. I just kill the Flood and slowly go forward until I reach the first door that needs to be opened by Guilty Spark. This is where the first holdout section comes in, and like I said before, they're really short and they're really not all that difficult. This first holdout section only has 6 combat forms and a handful of infection forms. You'll notice that I plasmed that elite Flood, and that's because just like in Halo 3, the elites do have shields. Once all the Flood is cleared, the door opens and I can progress to the first elevator. On the way there is a tunnel full of carrier forms, and I ended up dying because there are way too many infection forms to handle, which dwindled my health down and got me killed. Seriously, fuck these guys. On the other side of the tunnel, there is a group of sentinels that take care of a majority of the Flood, making my life easier while I head to the elevator. The elevators have been changed to be more like the Oracle from Halo 2, but with a much smaller and easier battle with the Flood. Onto the second floor, I am once again granted with a shotgun and some frag grenades to help take out the Flood. I might be crazy, but this is one of the greatest feeling shotguns within the Halo franchise. The visual recoil is a bit much, but I'll let it slide. Continuing forward, I am met with the Flood pouring out of the walls, which I take care of with my Magnum, and then I come across the next holdout section. This one was a bit more intense than the first, but it still wasn't terrible. This one was strictly human combat forms and carrier forms, meaning I didn't have to worry about any shielded Flood. After the last few Flood are dealt with, the door opens, revealing a second activation switch that opens a door to a spore-infested room. Inside is the original Reclaimer that nearly soloed the entire library by himself, and then some ammo along with an overshield.
The other Reclaimer. Unfortunately, his combat skin proved even less suitable than yours.
I'm a very big fan of Halo lore, and it's so cool to see my boy Marvin get some extra representation in the new game. One thing that the library still struggles with apparently is its checkpoints. I died here, and when I reloaded my checkpoint, I got sent back to the second holdout section.
No way.
Keep in mind, this is about 4 to 5 minutes since I actually cleared that section, but I got sent to the very beginning.
What?
After finishing the holdout section for a second time, I hang out with his dog, say what's up to my boy Marvin again, and then continue forward until I'm greeted by a horde of Flood. And then I blow myself up with my own grenade. Guess what? Still no checkpoint. Let me clear this holdout section for a third time, check up on my boy Marvin, and then continue forward. I head farther into the second floor until I am greeted by the Flood tank form. These guys are definitely tanky, but their AI isn't the brightest, meaning I can just stand on these boxes and slowly take them out. After killing the tank form, I make it to the third holdout section. This is another smaller one, and I make quick work of it, and then I head my way to the next elevator. On the way, I encounter a new room which forces me to go forward while fighting the Flood so that I can activate all the light bridges to get across. As I progress, Flood jump out from the fog below, and it makes for a really cool experience. After all the bridges are activated, I can head my way out and then head down the second elevator. This elevator actually stops as it's going down, and a horde of Flood come chasing after me. This is also where Rocket Flood make their first appearance, but fortunately, they're not an issue thanks to the Pop Skull. Once all the Flood are dead, the elevator continues its descent downward to the third floor. The third floor is honestly the easiest out of the 4. The Sentinels help me take out the regular Flood, and then I use their beams once they die to take out the tank form. I continue forward until I reach another small holdout section, and then progress through the mission until I reach another one of these light bridge rooms. This one isn't really cool at all, but hey, at least they left an overshield for me. This overshield is very important for the final encounter. The other side of the bridge room has the elevator, which is being guarded by stealth elite Flood. I take them out and then snag an energy sword, which is another thing which will be very handy for the final encounter. I head my way down to the final elevator and prepare myself for that last encounter. This was a lot harder on my first legendary playthrough, but I came up with an idea. The encounter forces you to kill 2 tank forms that are chasing you around the arena. Tank forms die to 5 energy sword slashes, and overshields keep you invincible while it's activating. If I spawn camp the tank form, I'll be able to get all 5 slashes off before he ends up killing me. All I have to do is repeat that one more time, and then I am home free. The only issue is that I need a second overshield. Unfortunately for me, there is another overshield at the bottom of the arena which allows me to safely kill the second tank form and finish the library. Up next is 2 Betrayals, arguably one of the harder levels within the Halo campaign, but that won't be the case for me. I'll get back to that in just a second. After taking out the Sentinels, I can open the door, taking out some more Sentinels along with the Covenant. Once the tunnel's clear, I can open the door leading to the canyon. Outside, there is a large group of Covenant waiting for me. Unlike the OG, I actually have to fight them. In the OG, there's a glitch that allows me to despawn all the guys upon opening the door, but that isn't present in this game. What is in this game is the Sentinel beam, and it absolutely shreds through just about everything. Upon clearing the area, I head up this spire and grab a Magnum so that I can noob combo all the elites as I go down the pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid, there is a handful of elites along with a Wraith. There just so happens to be a rocket launcher off to the side that I use to take out said Wraith. With the Wraith taken care of, all I have to do is kill the remaining elite and then snag the Banshee. Now back to why I said this was going to be easy. If you're familiar with CE speedrunning, you've probably seen a trick known as Bool. This stands for Banshee out of level. This trick is still possible in this game, and it is much easier. Once I get into the Banshee, I fly up to the side of where I'm meant to go normally, but then I slide in between this hole in the wall, taking me out of the map. There is a very specific path that I need to fly, otherwise I'll hit a kill barrier and die. I only died a couple times while doing this and managed to finish this level pretty quickly. After about 4 minutes of flying, I make it to the last pulse generator, and the only thing in my way is some Sentinels. I take out the 3 power node things, blowing up the pulse generator, and then I hide in a corner until the cutscene plays, finishing 2 Betrayals. On to my second to last mission in the LASO campaign, Keys. Keys was one of the easiest missions in the OG, but without the flood bump that skipped 90% of the level, it's not that simple anymore. The grunt that was once being chased by a combat form is now being chased by a whole ass tank. Rather than fighting him, I waited until he started throwing up popcorn and ran past him without any issues. The fall that was once a cutscene is no longer, and I just fall into the coolant, or at least I tried to. A majority of the ground level part of the mission is just running past everything and trying not to die, but that's pretty much impossible with the sheer amount of enemies. There is a way to skip this part of the mission, but that was found after I had already finished this campaign, and I'm pretty sure you need sprint in order to do it. I slowly make my way through all of the ground sections until I make it to the grav lift. The grav lift is definitely the hardest part of the first half of the mission, and it took me quite a few attempts to clear it. In order for the lift to take you up, all the Covenant guarding it need to die. For whatever reason, my method was to just bum rush the Covenant with an energy sword, killing the elites and abusing the Black Eye Skull, but that obviously didn't work. After countless deaths, I came up with a plan. I suck an elite with a plasma, killing the grunts that start a chain reaction. Those explosions flung everybody except for one last elite off the lift, allowing me to knock him off and head my way up into the ship. From here, things start to get much easier. I make my way through most of the ship by running past everything and only killing the flood that pose a real threat. I eventually came across a hallway filled to the brim with combat forms. I was stuck in this corner meleeing them for about 30 seconds straight, and I somehow survived. There's a room with a fight between the Flood and the Covenant, and I really didn't want to get mixed up into it. I tried running through a few times, but I died so much so fast that it ended up sending me back a checkpoint. This actually works out for me because now I know to save my overshield for when I'm running through the room. I can use it to give me a few seconds of invincibility, pretty much guaranteeing a safe passage. After running out of the room, I make it to the hangar. The hangar wasn't terrible, I just slowly fought my way through the floors until I finally made it to the hallway connecting to the bridge. This hallway is absolutely packed with elites and Flood fighting in the tightest area possible. I thought I would be able to melee my way through and slip by, but it turns out you actually need to kill every enemy in order for the door to open. I decided to simply just let all of them fight inside of the hallway, and then I took care of the stragglers. This saved me a lot of time and was much less stressful. Upon entering the bridge, a cutscene triggers, Chief fists keys, and then Cortana and I make our way out. There's a Spec Ops team outside the bridge, and before I can leave, I need them to blow the door open. I kill a few combat forms and then wait around in this back room until the Spec Ops team and the Flood finish fighting, allowing me to slip past them and make my way to the hangar. In the hangar, I wait until the Banshees come so I can snag one, but I get absolutely domed by this plasma nade. On my second attempt, I safely wait for the Banshees and then hijack one as it's coming through, finishing the mission and sending me to the final level of this LASO run. After many hours, I finally make it to the Maw. The Maw is very faithful to the original. The only thing that has changed is the Warthog run, and I much prefer this Warthog run over the original, but we'll get to that later. The first encounter in this level consists of carrier forms and sentinels. I throw a nade to take care of the carriers, and then hop down with my plasma rifle to take out the sentinels. Continuing forward is a door that gets broken down by the Flood. I use grenades to take out most of them, and then clean up the stragglers before I continue. After exiting the hallway that was previously full of flood, I throw a grenade at another group and take them out before I handle a couple of hunters. The hunters were very easy to take care of thanks to the shotgun, and once they're dealt with, I have to clear the mess hall. The mess hall has 2 waves of spec ops enemies. I take out the first group of grunts with a grenade and then take out the elite from range with my AR. The second wave comes in and I throw another grenade at the grunt and then close the gap with the elite, punching him across the room. I make it to the bridge, blowing up the grunt with a grenade and then beating the fuck out of the elite. Cortana starts a self-destruct sequence, which Guilty Spark then stops, sending me and Cortana to the engine room. The Oracle sends sentinels my way, but I simply ignore them and head my way to the engine. Immediately after leaving the bridge, flood began pouring out of a room, but I blew all of them up, making what would have been a very annoying encounter into a very quick and easy one. I continue through the ship, walking by everyone until I reach the cryo room. Rather than walking through all the flood and sentinels, I make a quick jump, bypassing them and making it to this flood-infested hallway. The goal is to kill as many as you can while moving up to keep them from spawning. Flood will continue to spawn until you move up to a certain point. I head through the vent, which now has a giant blast hole from the crash, which I think is really cool personally. After exiting the hole, I enter a hallway full of flood and Covenant, including some hunters. I sneak around them and then slip into the armory, where I grab a rocket launcher and prepare to blow up the engines. The engine room is actually a lot easier than I was expecting. I take out the engines depending on what side the sentinels are on, because they will absolutely melt me. After activating my first fusion reactor, I noticed the thingy-mabob wasn't actually moving. Turns out it was a visual bug and I just had to shoot through it. I take out all 4 fusion reactors, and now it's time to head to the Warthog run. But before I head there, I have a Spec Ops crew and a hunter standing in my way. These guys actually took me a good while to take care of. The main issue was the hunter. The boom skull also affects their weapon, and I fell victim to it many times. After many attempts, I eventually took him down and then was left with just one last squad of Covenant. These guys were super easy. I just pulled out my fuel rod and went to town. With my last real encounter, the Covenant cleared, I ride the elevator up to the Warthog run and then head my way to the end of the mission. The new Warthog run is very cool, and it makes a lot more sense with the amount of damage that the ship took upon crashing. The outdoor section is the most prominent change out of all of them, and I honestly really like it. I take a moment to watch Foehammer go down, and then I race to the end of the ship. The jump is still here, so don't worry about that. I try to squeeze my Warthog through the barrels, but I don't think you can do that anymore, unfortunately. I walk along the side of the path, dodging everything I can until I make it to the longsword and finish my LASO run for Campaign Wait. What? Prequel missions? What the fuck? I honestly didn't believe that the prequel missions were required for the LASO achievement, otherwise I would have had them at the beginning of the video. Surprise, you're stuck with me for 3 more missions. I start off with boarding action. It is the first of the 3 missions, and it's a pretty lengthy one. After this first area is cleared, Chief lets Johnson out of the Spirit, and he pulls out the gun that we've been wanting for years, the Stanchion. But guess what? You can't use it. People have already made mods which make it possible, but it not being in the vanilla game is kind of a letdown. From here, the mission really starts, and we're sent into rooms taking out a different kind of Covenant while Johnson snipes from the high ground. These first 2 rooms are very easy. Just snipe the grunts and let them do the hard work. The third room is the exact same, and once it's cleared, I head my way up the stairs and then take out some more cannon fodder until I reach the hunters. This was another pair that I struggled with, but not anywhere near as bad as the hunters on the TNR lift. It took me a solid 30 minutes, but I successfully took both down and then progressed farther into the mission. This mission begins to show us an aesthetic that we have never seen before with the Covenant. I'm a huge fan of the white and gold, and it gives me huge Leviathan vibes, and that's for any of you D2 fans watching. I'll be honest, I spent a majority of the bonus missions just sniping everything at range with a needle rifle because it's undeniably OP. After clearing the first floor of this room, I head up and handle a few elites, and once they're taken care of, I head to the sword fighting arena where elites come and rush me and sniper jackals try to take me from range. For whatever reason, there's also a ghost in here, and I made the mistake of trying to hijack it. The enemies here come in waves, but I'm pretty safe near the entrance as long as I don't let an elite get too close to me. The elites are already extremely aggressive in this game, and giving them an energy sword only makes it worse. Once the room is cleared, Johnson reverts to the lift and we go through the big purple tube. and continue forward until we reach a room with a bunch of alien test tube incubator things that hold the Halo 4 variant of the Covenant. I'm unaware of what the actual lore implication of this is or if it even has one, but it's pretty cool. In a hallway connecting to this room, there are a couple of elites, and at the end of the hall is a room with some sleeping grunts that Johnson decides to alert, and then a squad of Covenant on the other side. I died here more times than I would like to admit, and mainly to explosions, but despite that, I still cleared the room and went forward until I got a cutscene where Chief Ore farms per usual, and then this prophet introduces all the Covenant along with the return of the Brutes. Johnson tries to take out the Prophet, but the Brute jumps in front, causing Johnson to hit his rage inhibitor. The game resumes, and now I have a very angry monkey and a squad of Covenant in front of me. This room was definitely the hardest part of the level, with never-ending waves of enemies and constant explosions. My goal here is to take my time, don't get overwhelmed, and to take everything from range. However, this doesn't work so well when you're being chased by a monkey-shaped brick wall. When you break an inhibitor, the Brute is meant to attack whoever is closest to him, but for whatever fucking reason, this guy beelined straight to me. Long story short, the inhibitors don't always work as intended and make this room way harder than it needs to be. If the room wasn't hard enough already, once I kill the waves of Brutes and Elites, a pair of Hunters come out to make my day even worse. The grunts from earlier had fuel rods, so I took advantage of those and gave the Hunters a taste of their own medicine. With the Hunters down, I can finally head farther into the mission. And at this point, the video is getting pretty long, so I'm really only going to highlight the areas that I struggled with from now on. The end of this mission is certainly something. I'm in a large dome area similar to the hangar from Long Night of Solace from Halo Reach, but this is 10 times harder. The first few waves of enemies aren't terrible, but towards the end, that changes very quick. There are plenty of active camo and overshield power-ups, but those still don't do much against a pair of Hunters in a very open room alongside Jackal snipers and stealth elites that are actively trying to admit me into a psych ward. I fucking can't with this game, bro. This encounter alone was by far the worst part of the entire LASO campaign. I spent 4.5 hours in this room dying over and over and over again. I eventually decided to play aggressive and kill a group of enemies while they were coming out of the door so that I could slip in and have a safe spot to take everybody else out. So I did just that. I got rid of all the cannon fodder and the Jackal snipers until all that was remaining was the 2 Hunters and then 1 final stealth elite. I quickly take care of the Hunters with an energy sword and then carefully kill the elite from a distance, securing the room and heading my way to the second bonus mission. The second mission, the most dangerous game, is the easiest of the 3, and it didn't take me too terribly long. You start off in a Hunger Games type dome where the Covenant are out on the hunt for a group of Marines. I cleared this first area of Covenant and then get introduced to everybody's new favorite character, Lieutenant Williams. Johnson and I team up with her, and then we continue farther into the mission. I LARP as my grandfather, taking the Jackals out of the trees like it's Nam, and then we come across a bridge. There's a little Easter egg here that I activate by shooting the barrel sitting on these fire pillars, which opens a door and allows me to grab a rocket launcher to take care of the Wraith. Once the Wraith and the remaining enemies are taken care of, Johnson starts to hack open this door, leaving me to defend him while another pair of Hunters come out along with a squad of Covenant. These guys took me a little while to take care of, but I eventually realized I could go around behind them, safely taking everybody out along with the Hunters that are currently focused on Johnson. I head farther into the ship, freeing the Lieutenant squad and then taking out a couple of sword elites. I continue forward until I reach an arena with a few waves of enemies. This area can be a little tricky to deal with, but I realize the door that I came through was still unlocked, meaning I can let Johnson and Williams do most of the work for me while I hide and then come back out to clean up the stragglers. Once the waves are cleared, a single HVT will come out and I noob combo him and head my way to another bridge where we get ambushed by some Banshees and Brutes. I carefully take out the Brutes and Banshees and then reach another encounter where I take everything out with my needle rifle. On the other end of this area is a door which opens up to some more Covenant and a couple of shade turrets. I force the elites out of the turrets with a couple of grenades and then take them out and head forward to another large encounter with some more Covenant along with another pair of Hunters. These Hunters are very easy to deal with thanks to having multiple friendlies help distract them while I give them back shots. All that's left is one room and the second bonus mission will be over. However, this room gave me a very tough time even on standard legendary, so I was preparing for the worst. I got 2 overshields stocked up on grenades and ammo and then grabbed the best plasma pistol that I could find. In this room, there are multiple waves of enemies consisting of elites, jackals, brutes, and grunts. I played it as safely as I could, dodging grenades and keeping my distance from the sword elites, which gave me a very hard time during my legendary run. Before I knew it, everyone was dead and all that I had left was an HVT, which I take care of, ending the second mission and sending me to the final level of my LASO run, for real this time. Last but certainly not least, Heavy Burden. This is my favorite bonus mission out of the 3, thanks to the return of space combat. I will also add that this mission, just like the second, really wasn't that difficult, so bonus points from me. I run past a couple of Hunters using invis and then kinda do the same thing with these elites. I continue fighting past more encounters of the Covenant until I make it to the bridge. The bridge is the hardest part of the mission and it honestly cost me my patience. The bottom floor is full of enemies, including a couple of Hunters and a fuel rod wielding elite. They cause a majority of my deaths alongside the enemies that overwhelm you once they come out of these side rooms. At this point, I am pretty well versed in taking out Hunters, and these guys were a cakewalk once everybody was dead. When the room's cleared, I get a cutscene where we steal the map data that we were searching for, and then Johnson and I head out to go meet back up with Williams. Just in the back of the bridge is a room full of goodies that I stock up on for later. After leaving the bridge, I'm welcomed with a squad of Covenant attempting to ambush us. I clear them out and then continue forward until I reach the gondola section. Here, there's another pair of hunters which I remove, and then Johnson and I take a little ride across the ship. I was honestly expecting this to be very difficult, but I'm able to snipe anyone before they can board and then hide whenever necessary. Halfway through our ride, the power goes out, which we have to turn back on. The Covenant attempt to ambush us, but we take care of them and then continue our ride to Williams. The brutes can leap an insane distance, but I take them out mid-air, keeping me safe from being boarded by very angry monkeys. Once the gondola ride ends, we're met by a couple of elites and grunts. I noob combo them and then head into the ship's hangar, which has a few groups of enemies. There also happens to be an active wraith, and I'm not so sure it's safe to use inside of a space vessel, so someone should probably notify OSHA. I find a fully loaded beam rifle in this corner, which I use to easily take out the wraith, and then continue forward, killing one last group of enemies, which brings me to Williams. I get a cutscene where Williams volunteers to take out the ship's shields while going down with it, and then Johnson and I use a couple of Seraphs to head out into space. It was a big surprise to me how easy the space combat was in LASO, or even just legendary. This is an absolute walk in the park compared to Long Night of Solace, and you can call me crazy, but I'm kind of disappointed that it wasn't difficult. Either way, Johnson and I take out multiple Banshees and Seraphs while Williams shuts off the shields, allowing the burden of proof to fire the shot, destroying the ship and completing my LASO run for good. Overall, I think this game is good. If I didn't plan to make a video on it, would I have bought it for $70 or even $50? Probably not. I for sure would play it through Game Pass or bought it when it was on sale, but it's a bit too expensive for a remake with only a campaign. This game is absolutely gorgeous, and they did an amazing job with the flood levels, and the game is undeniably fun, but with the lack of content, I wouldn't have been able to justify that expensive of a purchase. However, it does really seem like Halo Studios is learning how to make a proper Halo, and I am glad to see it. Hopefully, we'll get an original Halo game from them in the near future, and they continue to get closer to the original Halo feel. I appreciate all of you who stayed, and I thoroughly hope you enjoyed this video. I have at least one more video planned for Campaign Evolved, but if you have something that you'd like to see from me in the future, be sure to leave it in the comments. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.